Hey guys, tonight we're going on an absolutely epic journey, one that spans millions upon millions of years, moving at a pace so impossibly slow it makes a snail look like a rocket ship. You're going to find yourself drifting through ancient seas, feeling the immense, unimaginable forces that sculpted our world, and eventually, you'll witness the birth of something truly colossal. Imagine, if you will, the ground beneath you not as solid, unchanging bedrock, but as a giant, slow-motion conveyor belt, constantly inching, grinding, and occasionally slamming into other conveyor belts. You might picture continents like immense, lazy rafts, bumping into each other in a primordial swimming pool. It's a process so gradual, so profound, that if you were there to experience it in real time, you probably wouldn't survive the unfathomable geological pressures, let alone the boredom. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, if you're listening, drop your location and local time in the comments. It's always wild to see where everyone is tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing on what feels like an impossibly vast, empty plain. The air is warm, humid, and carries the faint scent of prehistoric foliage and salty water, though the ocean is nowhere in sight. Look down. The ground beneath your bare feet is a patchwork of ancient sedimentary rock, eroded and smoothed by eons of wind and gentle rain. You can almost feel the faint tremor, a sub-audible hum that's not quite an earthquake, but rather the constant, imperceptible grind of the Earth's crust. It's like being in a silent, enormous factory, where the machines are the size of continents and their operations are measured in geological eras, not coffee breaks. You squint, trying to discern any movement, but it's like watching paint dry on a cosmic scale. Yet, this seemingly static landscape is anything but. Think of it this way. Our planet isn't a solid, unmoving ball. Oh no. It's more like a really, really old, hard-boiled egg that's cracked into a bunch of pieces. These pieces, these immense tectonic plates, are constantly jostling, rubbing, and occasionally dramatically colliding. You're standing on one such piece right now, and it's slowly, almost imperceptibly moving. It's a bit like being on a very slow, very large escalator that also happens to be a continent. You might find yourself wondering why no one told you about this during your elementary school geography lessons. One mainstream historical fact you might find amusing is that the idea of continental drift, though proposed much earlier, only really gained widespread scientific acceptance in the mid-21st century with the development of plate tectonics theory. Before that, geologists scratched their heads, trying to figure out why identical fossils of ancient ferns kept popping up on wildly separated landmasses. They even invented imaginary land bridges, bless their cotton socks. It was a bit like trying to solve a jigsaw puzzle by forcing the pieces, then drawing extra bits to make them fit. A quirky tidbit? Well, some fringe theories even suggest that these constant, minute plate movements might influence the Earth's magnetic field in ways we don't fully understand, potentially leading to slight, long-term shifts in our perception of the North Pole. Imagine that. Your compass slowly but surely lying to you, million by million. Historians still argue whether early navigators centuries ago ever unconsciously sensed these subtle shifts, perhaps attributing them to divine intervention or particularly bad rum. For now, you just feel the faint thrum, the almost spiritual connection to the planet's deep internal churn. You're not just standing on a piece of land. You're on a fragment of an immense, constantly rearranging global puzzle. And this particular fragment is about to embark on an unimaginable journey. You're still there, on that vast ancient plain, feeling the subtle rhythmic hum of the earth. But now, as you look around, you start to perceive something truly monumental. The air feels thicker, heavier, and if you listen closely, you can almost hear a deep, resonating groan, like an old house settling, but on a scale that beggars belief. You are standing, or rather slowly drifting, on the supercontinent of Gondwana. It's not just a landmass, it's practically a world unto itself, a colossal amalgamation of what will one day become South America, Africa, Antarctica, Australia, and, crucially for our story tonight, India. Think of it as the ultimate group project, where everyone's stuck together, sharing resources and occasionally elbowing for space, but on a geological timescale. Imagine looking out over an unbroken expanse of land that stretches further than your mind can truly comprehend. A panorama of ancient forests, vast deserts, and shallow inland seas teeming with bizarre, now extinct creatures. The sun, a little different back then, perhaps a bit warmer, casts long, lazy shadows as it arcs across a sky that still holds the faint echo of nascent oxygen. You might feel a gentle, almost imperceptible tilt underfoot, like being on an enormous, slowly capsizing ship, though the process is so ridiculously drawn out that seasickness is hardly a concern. We're talking about movements of mere centimeters per year here, less than your fingernails grow in the same amount of time. If you ever needed proof that patience is a virtue, just watch a continent move. It's like waiting for dial-up internet, but over 100 million years. One mainstream historical fact about Gondwana that often surprises people is that it wasn't the first supercontinent. Oh no, the Earth has been doing this continental mash-up and breakup dance for billions of years. Before Gondwana, there was Rodinia, and before Rodinia, others, each with its own dramatic story of collision and rift. Geologists have even given these ancient landmasses wonderfully evocative names, like Valbara and Kennerland, sounds that could easily be fantasy realms from a forgotten saga. A quirky tidbit about Gondwana specifically is that for a long time, paleontologists were utterly baffled by the discovery of identical fossilized freshwater reptiles, like Lystrosaurus, found on continents now separated by vast oceans. It was like finding a specific brand of chewing gum wrapper in both New York and Antarctica. Highly improbable unless they were once, well, next to each other. This inexplicable distribution was one of the key pieces of evidence that forced scientists to eventually accept the seemingly radical idea of continental drift. Historians still argue whether early, pre-scientific cultures, perhaps through ancient myths or oral traditions passed down over countless generations, held some vague, intuitive understanding of the Earth's deep, slow movements. Did they sense the ground beneath them wasn't as utterly fixed as it seemed? Perhaps their stories of world-shaping giants or slumbering dragons were echoes of the profound geological forces they lived upon. For you, now, the sensation is one of being part of something immense and inevitable. You feel the slow, steady pull as the great landmass begins its almost imperceptible fracturing. Cracks, thin as spiderwebs at first, begin to snake across the vast plains, destined to become oceans. The air feels a little lighter, a hint of something new in the far distance, a vast, open expanse yet to be revealed. The continent isn't just a single entity anymore. It's a collection of restless giants, each tugging against the others, eager for their own adventures. And one of them, the piece you're currently on, is about to get a rather significant head start on its northward journey. The ground beneath you shifts again, this time with a more discernible sense of purpose. It's still incredibly slow, mind you, like watching a glacier calve, majestic, but requiring an almost superhuman level of patience. But there's a new feeling in the air, a sense of separation. You can almost hear the silent tearing, the molecular bonds of the ancient supercontinent reluctantly giving way. The vast expanse of Gondwana is beginning to fracture, and the piece you're on, the future subcontinent of India, is starting its long, solitary voyage north. Imagine being on a colossal island that has just broken free from its mainland, setting sail on an ocean that doesn't even fully exist yet. It's like being cast adrift on a lifeboat the size of a small country, with millennia of travel ahead. The landscape around you begins to subtly transform. Where once there were continuous plains stretching to the horizon, you now start to see the faintest hint of a depression forming in the distance. A shallow trough that will eventually deepen and widen into a major oceanic rift. The air, still humid, carries a new tang, the scent of fresh volcanic activity as magma from deep within the earth begins to well up along the newly formed boundary. It's a slow-motion birth of an ocean, a geological unveiling that will take millions of years. You might feel a slight warmth radiating from the ground in places, a gentle reminder of the immense heat and power churning beneath your feet. Think of it as the earth slowly exhaling, releasing the pressure of its tectonic restlessness. One mainstream historical fact to keep in mind is that this separation wasn't a clean break. There were likely periods of stretching, thinning crust, and volcanic eruptions that peppered the landscape for millions of years before India fully detached. It wasn't like snapping a cracker. It was more like slowly pulling apart taffy, with sticky, molten strands connecting the separating landmasses for an incredibly long time. A quirky tidbit related to this is the existence of certain rock formations and fossil distributions that still puzzle geologists, hinting at these lingering connections and the precise timing of the full separation. It's like finding a single mismatched sock in your laundry years after you thought you'd lost its partner. A tiny clue to a long-ago event. Historians still argue whether the precise mechanisms that drive these massive continental movements are fully understood. While we know about convection currents in the Earth's mantle, the exact interplay of forces and the triggers for major continental breakups are still subjects of intense research and debate. It's a bit like knowing that wind makes a sailboat move, but not fully understanding the intricate dance of sails, wind direction, and hull shape that determines its precise course and speed. For you, the experience is less about the scientific intricacies and more about the growing sense of isolation. You're on your own now, this massive island continent slowly but surely drifting away from its former companions. The vast, empty space ahead, the embryonic Tethys Ocean, awaits. Your northward journey has begun. A silent, epic voyage driven by forces deep within the planet. A journey that will ultimately lead to a monumental collision and the creation of the roof of the world. There's a profound sense of solitude as you drift onward, the faintest whisper of the nascent ocean breeze on your skin. You are a silent witness to the planet's slow, deliberate choreography, a grand geological ballet unfolding over unimaginable timescales. You're still on that magnificent, drifting island, feeling the subtle quiver of the earth as it reshapes itself. The sense of separation is now complete. The vast expanse of Gondwana, a fading memory behind you. Ahead, stretching beyond the horizon, is a shallow, nascent sea, the embryonic Tethys Ocean. You feel a gentle, almost imperceptible coolness in the air. A hint of the water that is slowly, inexorably, beginning to fill the colossal rift left behind by your departure. It's like watching a bathtub slowly fill, but the bathtub is a continent-sized depression and the faucet has been running for millions of years. The scene around you is one of profound, serene transformation. Imagine standing on a shoreline where the waves lap at freshly formed volcanic rock, still cooling from the Earth's fiery depths. The water itself isn't the deep, dark blue of today's mighty oceans. It's likely a murky green, rich with dissolved minerals and teeming with early, bizarre forms of marine life. You might spot strange shelled creatures scuttling on the seafloor, or primitive fish darting through the silty water. The air carries the faint, briny scent of a young sea, mixed with the occasional whiff of sulfur from distant undersea volcanic vents. It's a tableau of creation, slow and steady, where new ecosystems are forming in response to the planet's dramatic restructuring. One mainstream historical fact about the Tethys Ocean is that it was not just one continuous body of water throughout its immense lifespan. It was a dynamic, evolving ocean, sometimes wider, sometimes narrower, even splitting into eastern and western portions at various points, due to the constantly shifting continental plates. It was like a very temperamental, geographically unstable swimming pool. A quirky tidbit is that many of the limestone deposits found in the modern Himalayas, containing ancient marine fossils, are direct evidence of this vanished ocean. Imagine finding fossilized seashells at altitudes of thousands of meters. It's geological proof that those mighty peaks were once the seafloor, a kind of cosmic receipt for a long-lost ocean. Historians still argue whether the precise depth and circulation patterns of the Tethys Ocean had a significant impact on global climate systems before its demise. Did its unique geography create unique currents or weather patterns that we can only guess at now? For you, the sensation is one of vastness. You are floating on a colossal raft, and on either side, new oceans are being born. The Tethys stretches out before you, an immense, watery stage upon which the next act of our geological drama will unfold. You feel the almost imperceptible swell of the water beneath the landmass, the rhythmic pulse of the Earth's internal engine. This ocean, so vast and enduring for millions of years, is destined to be crushed out of existence, squeezed between immense landmasses like toothpaste from a tube. Its days are numbered, though those numbers stretch into the unimaginable expanse of geological time. The slow, patient obliteration of this ancient sea has already begun. You're still adrift, a silent passenger on the vast Indian landmass, which now truly feels like an island, gliding across the face of the planet. The Tethys Ocean stretches out around you, seemingly endless, but a subtle, almost imperceptible shift in the environment tells you that forces far beneath the waves are at play. You feel a gentle, persistent tug, like a giant, invisible current pulling the massive landmass forward. This sensation is the silent, ongoing work of subduction zones, Earth's incredible slow-motion recycling centers. It's where the old oceanic crust, having done its duty, gracefully dives back into the fiery mantle, making way for new crust to form elsewhere. Imagine a giant, perpetually hungry conveyor belt that's slowly pulling a massive carpet underneath a stage. The carpet represents the oceanic floor of the Tethys, and the stage is the edge of the Eurasian plate, which awaits your arrival. As you drift closer, you can almost visualize the Tethys seafloor, miles beneath the surface, beginning to bend downwards, bowing under immense pressure. It's not a sudden plunge, but an agonizingly slow, relentless descent, measured in centimeters per year. This process is accompanied by deep, resonant tremors, not violent quakes you'd feel on the surface, but a deep, geological groan that vibrates through the very core of the Earth. You might notice the water becoming slightly murkier in places, stirred by these colossal hidden movements, and perhaps a faint, metallic taste in the air from the churning minerals below. One mainstream historical fact about subduction zones is their crucial role in the rock cycle and the formation of continents. They are the primary sites where new continental crust is generated through volcanic activity, as the melting oceanic plate rises to the surface. It's like the Earth is constantly baking new batches of land, using old seafloor as the ingredients. A quirky tidbit is that the deepest parts of the world's oceans, like the Mariana Trench, are typically found right at these subduction zones. These trenches are essentially the entry ramps, where the oceanic plate begins its long dive into the mantle. Imagine a trench so deep you could stack 20 Empire State Buildings inside it, one on top of the other, and still not reach the surface. Historians still argue whether the angle and rate of subduction significantly impact the type and intensity of volcanic activity on the overriding plate. Does a steeper dive lead to more explosive eruptions, or is it more nuanced than that? For you, the sensation is one of immense, unseen power. You are witnessing, in the slowest possible motion, the true engine of plate tectonics. The Tethys Ocean, once a vast expanse, is now being inexorably consumed, its ancient seafloor vanishing back into the Earth's fiery belly. This continuous recycling process is not just about destruction. It's about preparation. Every centimeter of the Tethys plate that descends into the mantle brings your colossal island continent closer to its destiny. The stage is being set. The oceanic floor is being cleared, and the countdown to a truly magnificent collision has begun. The pressure is building, silently, powerfully, as the ancient Tethys slowly but surely gives way. The vast Tethys Ocean continues its slow, silent disappearance, shrinking inch by agonizing inch into the Earth's mantle. And you, on the mighty Indian landmass, feel an entirely new sensation now. It's a subtle, almost imperceptible contact, a faint whisper across the vast geological distance that once separated you from another colossal landmass. This is it, the early collisions, the very first gentle nudges between continents that will, over millions of years, escalate into the planet's most dramatic tectonic embrace. It's like two incredibly large, incredibly slow-moving icebergs finally making contact, generating ripples that are too vast to be felt immediately, but are undeniably there. Imagine the feeling of a very distant, heavy object slowly nudging your own. There's no sudden jolt, no dramatic crash. Instead, it's a gradual, increasing resistance, a shift in the ambient geological hum. You might notice a subtle, almost imperceptible rise in the land ahead of you, a kind of embryonic wrinkle forming on the distant horizon, miles and miles away. This isn't mountains yet, just the very first hint of the immense pressure building. The air might feel a little thicker, charged with the latent energy of billions of tons of rock about to meet their irresistible force. It's like being in a cosmic game of billiards where the balls are continents and the game lasts for epochs. One mainstream historical fact to consider is that these initial contacts weren't a single, uniform event across the entire boundary. Different parts of the Indian plate likely made contact with the Eurasian plate at slightly different times, creating a staggered, complex series of initial impacts. It was less like two solid walls meeting, and more like a series of small, overlapping bumps and scrapes before the main event. A quirky tidbit is that evidence for these early collisions can be found in the distinct geological signatures of certain rock types in the Himalayas, revealing the precise sequence of these initial kisses. Think of it as forensic geology, where the rocks themselves tell the story of their ancient encounters. Historians still argue whether the presence of smaller, microcontinental blocks caught between the two main plates buffered these early impacts or exacerbated the stresses. Did these smaller pieces act as cushions, or did they intensify the pressure points? For you, the sensation is one of impending grandeur. You are at the very beginning of a tectonic dance, where two immense entities are slowly, inevitably, drawing closer. The Tethys Ocean, once a vast buffer, is now just a thin, dwindling strip of water, its demise sealed. The pressure is building, not with explosive force, but with the relentless, unyielding power of continental drift. These first nudges are the overture to a symphony of geological creation, a prelude to the lifting of mountains that will redefine the very face of the Earth. You can almost hear the soft, persistent rumble of the future, a promise of the monumental forces yet to be unleashed. The initial gentle nudges have transformed into a profound, unyielding pressure. You can feel it now, a deep, pervasive squeezing sensation that vibrates through the very ground you stand on. The colossal Indian landmass, having traversed the Tethys Ocean, is no longer merely touching Eurasia. It is actively, relentlessly pushing against it. This immense slow-motion squeeze is leading to one of the most fundamental processes in mountain building: crustal thickening. Imagine taking a thick, malleable rug and pushing it against a wall. It doesn't just stop. It buckles, folds, and piles up, becoming thicker and higher. That's essentially what's happening to the Earth's crust here, but on a scale that defies easy comprehension. You might notice the landscape around you isn't flat anymore. Subtle undulations have become pronounced folds, and what were once distant hills are now distinct ridges, growing taller with agonizing slowness. The air feels dense, almost heavy with the pressure, and if you were to somehow see the rocks beneath your feet, you'd witness them being compressed, fractured, and slowly, irrevocably deformed. It's like watching an impossibly slow-motion car crash where the metal crumples over millions of years rather than milliseconds. There's a constant, deep rumble, not from an earthquake, but from the grinding of immense rock masses being forced against each other, a sound that only the Earth itself can truly hear. One mainstream historical fact that illustrates this process is how the Himalayas contain rocks that were once deep beneath the Earth's surface, later exhumed by this very process of crustal thickening and uplift. Geologists find rocks like gneiss and schist, formed under immense heat and pressure, now exposed at very high altitudes. It's like finding a deep-sea fish flopping around on top of Mount Everest. A quirky tidbit about crustal thickening is that it's not just about pushing material upwards. It also involves the crust becoming thicker downwards, like a keel on a boat, extending deep into the mantle. This root of the mountain range helps explain why the Himalayas are so incredibly stable despite their immense height. Historians still argue whether the initial geometry of the colliding plates, specifically the irregularities along their edges, influenced the precise location and intensity of the earliest significant crustal thickening. Did a particularly jagged edge lead to an earlier, more dramatic buckling in one spot versus another? For you, the experience is one of pure, raw geological power. The Tethys Ocean is now largely a memory, its remnants squeezed and uplifted into nascent mountain ranges. The relentless forward motion of India is not just forming mountains, it is literally shortening the Earth's crust, compacting it, and forcing it to accommodate the immense pressure by expanding upwards and downwards. The peaks you'll eventually see are still eons away, but their foundations, their immense roots, are being laid right now in this slow, inexorable, geological embrace. The land is literally gaining weight, thickening, and preparing for its skyward ascent. The colossal squeeze of the Indian plate against Eurasia continues, creating unimaginable pressures deep within the Earth's crust. But now, amidst this slow, relentless compression, you sense a new, fiery element entering the equation. It's a profound heat, a deep, bubbling energy rising from below. This is magma's ascent, the fiery birth of mountains, where molten rock, generated by the immense friction and partial melting of the diving plate, begins its arduous journey upwards, creating volcanoes alongside the relentless compression. Imagine a massive pressure cooker, where the immense stress forces the very ingredients to liquefy and then seek an escape route. You feel a new warmth emanating from beneath the ground. Not a gentle warmth, but a more intense, almost primal heat. The air itself might shimmer slightly in the distance, distorted by rising thermals from unseen vents. If you could peer into the Earth's depths, you'd see plumes of molten rock, viscous and glowing, slowly pushing their way through fractures and weaknesses in the overlying crust. It's a slow-motion geological eruption, not always explosive on the surface, but a steady, inexorable rise of new material. You might catch a whiff of sulfur, a telltale sign of volcanic activity, even if the actual eruptions are still far off in the geological future. It's like being in a giant underground forge, where the Earth itself is smelting new land. One mainstream historical fact about this process is that many of the earliest mountain ranges formed by continental collisions, including parts of the proto-Himalayas, were characterized by significant volcanic activity. These were often massive, composite volcanoes, built layer by layer from successive eruptions, adding to the growing bulk of the rising land. It wasn't just folding and faulting. It was also fiery construction from below. A quirky tidbit is that the specific chemical composition of the magma generated in these collision zones can tell geologists a great deal about the depth at which the subducting plate began to melt. It's like a culinary detective story, where the ingredients in the lava tell you exactly where the cooking happened. Historians still argue whether the volume and frequency of volcanic eruptions during the early stages of the Himalayan collision had a significant impact on global atmospheric composition and, consequently, on prehistoric climate. Did these ancient volcanoes pump out enough gases to temporarily alter the atmosphere, perhaps even contributing to periods of warming or cooling? For you, the sensation is one of profound geological duality. You are experiencing both the crushing forces of collision and the creative, fiery power of the Earth's interior. The land is not just buckling from the sides. It is being pushed up from beneath by molten rock, adding to its immense bulk and height. These early volcanic peaks, though long since eroded or buried by subsequent geological processes, were crucial pioneers in the formation of the nascent Himalayan range, laying down the first igneous foundations for the future roof of the world. The Earth is not just folding, it's actively growing. The immense forces of collision and the fiery whispers of rising magma continue their slow, relentless work, building the proto-Himalayas. But as these nascent peaks begin to push skyward, another equally powerful, though seemingly gentle, force immediately begins its counterwork. Erosion's relentless sculpting hand. You feel the subtle brush of wind, the soft patter of ancient rain, and the slow trickle of water over rock. These seemingly insignificant forces, accumulated over millions of years, are incredibly powerful sculptors, constantly carving, wearing down, and reshaping everything the Earth creates. It's like watching an artist meticulously chiseling away at a colossal living sculpture that is also constantly growing. Imagine standing on a freshly exposed peak. The rock is sharp, jagged, unweathered. But almost instantly, tiny cracks begin to appear as temperature fluctuations expand and contract the stone. Water seeps into these cracks, freezes, and expands, prying pieces apart. The wind, carrying abrasive dust particles, acts like sandpaper, slowly grinding away at the surfaces. And then comes the rain, forming rivulets that gather into streams, carving channels, and carrying away sediment. You might see small landslides, or perhaps a flash flood in the distance, dramatic reminders of water's power. It's a constant, slow-motion demolition. A geological game of takeaway, while put together, is still happening. One mainstream historical fact about erosion is that it's not just about wearing mountains down. it also creates vast sedimentary basins. The eroded material from the Himalayas, for instance, has filled immense plains and ocean floors, forming new rock layers that will eventually become mountains themselves in some distant future. It's the Earth's never-ending cycle of recycling. A quirky tidbit is that the very presence of rapid erosion can actually accelerate mountain uplift. As material is removed from the top, it lightens the load, allowing the mountain's root deeper in the crust to buoyantly rise further, a phenomenon geologists call isostatic rebound. It's like squeezing a balloon. If you press it down, it expands elsewhere. Historians still argue whether changes in global climate patterns during the Cenozoic era, particularly the onset of more intense monsoon systems, significantly accelerated the rate of erosion in the nascent Himalayas compared to other mountain ranges. Did stronger rains mean faster carving? For you, the sensation is one of constant flux, a dynamic balance between construction and deconstruction. The mountains are rising, yes, but they are also constantly being stripped away, their material redistributed across the landscape. The very dust beneath your feet could be ancient mountain, once part of a towering peak. This relentless sculpting by wind and water is not just shaping the visible peaks, it's also influencing the deep-seated processes, a silent partner in the grand, slow dance of mountain building. The mountains are growing, but they are never truly finished, always being refined by the elements. The grinding collision of the Indian and Eurasian plates, coupled with the constant, patient work of erosion, has brought you to a point where the landscape is truly beginning to defy gravity. You feel an immense, persistent upward thrust, a slow, powerful heave from beneath your feet. This is the stage of ongoing uplift, where the Himalayas are truly reaching skyward, gaining the immense height and grandeur for which they are renowned. It's no longer just buckling or folding. It's a majestic, agonizingly slow ascent, as if the Earth itself is taking a deep breath and expanding upwards. Imagine standing on a vast, tilted plain, constantly being pushed higher and higher. The air is thinner now, colder, and the distant peaks, still forming, are shrouded in swirling mists, hinting at their growing altitude. You might hear the distant rumble of rockfalls, a stark reminder of the immense stresses at play as massive slabs of crust are forced upwards, occasionally collapsing under their own weight. It's like watching a monumental cathedral being built, brick by geological brick. But the bricks are mountains, and the construction takes millions of years. Every earthquake, every tremor, no matter how small, is a tiny tremor of this colossal growth spurt. You might feel a subtle shift in the gravitational pull, almost imperceptible, as the sheer mass of the rising land subtly distorts the local field. One mainstream historical fact about ongoing uplift is that it's not uniform. Some parts of the Himalayan range are still rising at rates of several millimeters per year, while others might be relatively stable or even subsiding slightly due to localized geological factors. It's a bit like a giant, uneven conveyor belt, with some parts moving faster than others. A quirky tidbit related to this is the river paradox in the Himalayas. Many major rivers, instead of flowing around the rising mountains, cut directly through them in deep gorges. This phenomenon, known as antecedent drainage, suggests these rivers existed before the mountains fully rose and simply kept eroding their channels downwards as the mountains slowly pushed upwards around them. Imagine a garden hose staying put while the entire garden around it slowly rises. Historians still argue whether the rate of ongoing uplift in specific regions of the Himalayas correlates directly with the density and thickness of the underlying crustal root. Does a deeper root necessarily mean faster uplift? Or are other factors, like mantle convection, more dominant? For you, The sensation is one of being a part of something truly extraordinary, witnessing the very architecture of the planet being redesigned. The Tethys Ocean is now entirely consumed, its ancient floor uplifted, folded, and metamorphosed into the very rocks of the towering range. The struggle between the irresistible force of the colliding plates and the immovable mass of the continental crust is expressed in this slow, majestic ascent. The roof of the world is not just formed, it is actively, persistently reaching for the heavens, a testament to the Earth's enduring power and the incredible patience of geological time. The mountains are breathing, ever so slowly, expanding with each passing epoch. The mountains are still rising, a colossal slow-motion wave of rock pushing higher and higher into the atmosphere. But this immense geological event isn't happening in isolation. It's triggering a dramatic transformation far beyond the immediate collision zone. You sense a profound shift in the very fabric of the air around you, a new rhythm in the wind, a different quality to the moisture. This is how the rising Himalayas, those truly colossal barriers, are causing weather systems to transform, fundamentally altering global climate patterns, especially the powerful monsoon winds. It's like a huge invisible wall has just appeared in the middle of a global airflow, forcing everything to adapt. Imagine standing on a high, wind-swept ridge. Below you, the vast plains of what will become India stretch out, baking under a hot sun. But as the mountains rise, they become an insurmountable barrier to the moist, warm air masses streaming in from the ocean. This air, unable to pass over, is forced upwards, cooling as it rises. You feel the temperature drop, and then, inevitably, you feel the release of that moisture as rain, and lots of it. It's an almost paradoxical feeling. The very act of the earth-building mountains is creating the conditions for intense seasonal deluges. The air currents are now like a giant atmospheric river dammed by these rising peaks, creating a profoundly different kind of weather machine. One mainstream historical fact about the monsoons is that their strengthening, directly linked to the uplift of the Himalayas, played a crucial role in the evolution of diverse ecosystems across South Asia. The dependable seasonal rains allowed for the flourishing of vast forests and grasslands, supporting a rich tapestry of life. It was a weather system tailor-made for abundance. A quirky tidbit is that the very same process of uplift that creates the monsoons also influences the timing of the Indian subcontinent's breakup from Gondwana. The massive erosion caused by the monsoons actually helps to unweight the mountains, allowing them to rise even faster. It's a feedback loop of cosmic proportions, like the mountains are growing themselves bigger by making it rain more. Historians still argue whether the long-term changes in monsoon intensity also influenced the distribution and diversification of early hominid populations in regions like Africa and Asia. Did these altered weather patterns encourage migrations or create new ecological niches that fostered human evolution? For you, the sensation is one of profound interconnectedness. The immense geological forces that are building the Himalayas are directly responsible for shaping the climate, not just regionally, but globally. The once uniform winds and moisture patterns have been irrevocably altered, creating the distinct seasons and landscapes we recognize today. The mountains are not just static giants. They are active architects of the atmosphere, constantly interacting with the very air that moves around them, shaping the world one raindrop and one gust of wind at a time. The world's breath itself has changed because of these towering peaks. The colossal Himalayas stand tall, still growing, still shaping the very air around them. But their story isn't just about rocks and wind and rain. It's also about life. You sense a slow, persistent hum of adaptation, the rustle of evolving leaves, the distant call of new species finding their niche. This is the stage where life adapts, where biodiversity begins to flourish and evolve within these towering heights and the new climate zones they've created. It's like watching an empty canvas slowly come alive with vibrant colors and intricate details, each stroke taking millions of years. Imagine tracing the journey of a single, tenacious seed carried by the wind, finding purchase in a newly formed crevice on a high peak, or a small, hardy mammal, slowly venturing further and further up the slopes, driven by the search for new food sources or safer havens. The changes are agonizingly slow from your perspective, but over vast geological timescales, the adaptations are profound. Animals evolve thicker coats, develop specialized digestive systems for sparse vegetation, or learn to navigate the precipitous terrain. Plants develop deep root systems to cling to rocky slopes or alter their growth cycles to endure extreme cold and thin air. You might feel the bite of the wind, the intense glare of the sun at altitude, or the sudden, invigorating chill of snowmelt. All factors that drive this relentless push for survival and specialization. One mainstream historical fact about Himalayan biodiversity is that it serves as a critical hotspot, a melting pot of species from both the Indian subcontinent and Central Asia. The mountains acted as both a barrier and a bridge, influencing migration patterns and leading to unique evolutionary divergences. It's like a biological traffic jam at the intersection of two major highways. A quirky tidbit is the discovery of ancient marine fossils, like ammonites high in the Himalayas. These aren't just geological curiosities. They show that life once existed where the mountains now stand, a poignant reminder of the Tethys Ocean's prior existence and a testament to the colossal uplift. Historians still argue whether specific climate oscillations during the Pliocene and Pleistocene epochs, influenced by the ongoing Himalayan uplift, significantly accelerated or slowed down the rate of speciation among certain animal groups in the region. Did periods of intense glaciation isolate populations, fostering rapid diversification, or did they lead to extinctions? For you, the sensation is one of silent, tenacious triumph. Despite the immense grinding forces of geological change, life finds a way. The very harshness of the environment, forged by colliding continents, becomes the crucible for new forms of existence. The mountains are not barren giants. They are vibrant, living ecosystems, teeming with species perfectly attuned to the extreme conditions. The slow, patient growth of the Himalayas is paralleled by the slow, patient evolution of the life that calls them home, an intricate dance between geological power and biological resilience. The towering Himalayas are now a majestic, undeniable presence, reshaping weather and fostering new life. But as millennia turn into epochs, another, even more profound transformation begins to unfold upon their lower slopes and in the fertile valleys below. You sense a new presence, a soft, deliberate step, a curious gaze. This is the human arrival, where ancient cultures begin to emerge and adapt to this monumental, ever-changing landscape. It's like watching a grand stage, painstakingly constructed over millions of years, finally welcome its first, most intricate actors. Imagine walking through a valley that was once a shallow, ancient sea, now fertile land fed by glacial meltwater. You see crude tools, the faint wisps of smoke from distant campfires, and perhaps the faint outline of early settlements. These aren't just any humans. These are some of the most resilient and innovative beings, drawn to the unique resources and challenges of this grand geological stage. They learn to hunt the specialized mountain animals, to cultivate the resilient high-altitude crops, and to navigate the treacherous yet awe-inspiring passes. The very act of mountain building, which was once an abstract geological force, now directly influences the daily lives, the migration routes, and the very survival of these early communities. You might feel a primal connection to these ancestors, whose lives were so intimately tied to the rhythms of this nascent mountain range. One mainstream historical fact about human presence in the Himalayan region is that it has been a crucible of diverse cultures and spiritual traditions for millennia. The sheer isolation of many valleys led to the development of unique languages, customs, and religious practices that persist to this day. It's a testament to human adaptability that such complex societies could thrive in such a challenging environment. A quirky tidbit is the enduring mystery surrounding the linguistic origins of some isolated Himalayan communities. With their languages showing surprising genetic distances from their lowland neighbors, hinting at ancient migrations or long-lost branches of human settlement. It's like finding a dialect of Old English spoken only in a tiny, forgotten village in the middle of nowhere. Historians still argue whether the physical isolation imposed by the rising Himalayas led to a greater degree of cultural preservation and unique evolutionary pressures on human populations compared to more interconnected regions. Did the mountains act as a natural preserve for certain cultural traits, or did they merely slow the pace of external influence? For you, the sensation is one of shared history, a profound connection between the planet's deep past and our own. The mountains, built by the patient collision of continents, are now shaping human destiny, influencing trade routes, spiritual beliefs, and the very concept of home for millions. The slow geological dance continues, but now it has an audience and a participant in the form of humanity, slowly learning to live with and even revere the world's highest peaks. The story of the Earth is now interwoven with the story of us. The grand slow-motion ballet of continental collision has gifted the Earth with the Himalayas, a living testament to geological power. Now, in what feels like mere moments compared to the eons we've traveled, you observe the mountains not through ancient eyes, but through the sophisticated gaze of modern monitoring. Scientists, using incredible technology, are now meticulously measuring the subtle, ongoing growth of these giants, revealing that the process is far from over. It's like watching an ancient, magnificent clock, its gears still grinding, but now with incredibly precise instruments attached to every cog. Imagine a network of tiny, silent sensors scattered across the vast, icy peaks and deep valleys. These aren't just weather stations. These are sophisticated GPS receivers, capable of detecting movements as small as a few millimeters per year. You can almost visualize the data streams, showing how individual peaks are still pushing upwards, how valleys are widening, and how the entire range is slowly, persistently expanding. It's a dance of millimeters, a constant, imperceptible heave that's only visible with the help of satellites orbiting hundreds of miles above. You might feel a profound sense of awe that after all this time, after all these eons, the Earth is still actively building its greatest monuments. It's like finding out that the Great Pyramids are still getting taller, just very, very slowly. One mainstream historical fact that underscores this is the advent of space-based geodesy, a fancy term for measuring the Earth's shape and gravitational field using satellites. Technologies like GPS and INSAR, interferometric synthetic aperture radar, have revolutionized our ability to track subtle ground movements, giving us unprecedented insight into tectonic processes. Before this, geologists had to rely on much cruder methods, like measuring distances with optical instruments over decades. A quirky tidbit is how some of these measurements have revealed that the Indian plate is still driving northward at a rate of roughly 4 or 5 centimeters per year, which, while seemingly small, is incredibly fast for a continent. That's about as fast as your hair grows. So the Himalayas aren't just sitting there, they're perpetually, almost imperceptibly, getting bigger and bigger, making new hair accessories for Earth 1 millimeter at a time. Historians still argue whether the exact rate of uplift and erosion in specific Himalayan subranges can be used to more accurately predict the timing and intensity of future large-scale seismic events in the region. Are the mountains giving us clues about future earthquakes? If only we can interpret them correctly. For you, the sensation is one of living history, of witnessing a geological process that has spanned unimaginable stretches of time, still playing out right before your technologically enhanced eyes. The forces that shape the Earth's distant past are still at work today, and we now have the tools to observe them. The Himalayas are not finished. They are living, breathing, growing giants, their story continuing to unfold with every passing second, meticulously recorded by the watchful gaze of modern science. You've traveled through the immense epics, witnessing the birth and slow, majestic rise of the Himalayas, from the ancient breakup of Gondwana to the meticulous measurements of modern science. But our journey isn't quite over. As you stand here, looking out at the vast, snow-capped expanse, you begin to contemplate the future peaks, the unfolding geological story yet to be written. The Himalayas, these colossal monuments of Earth's power, are not static endpoints. They are merely a snapshot in a constantly evolving narrative. It's like pausing a movie at an epic scene, knowing the story continues long after the credits roll. Imagine the unimaginable stretches of time yet to come. The Indian Plate, still driven by the relentless forces deep within the Earth, continues its slow, persistent northward push. Will the mountains grow even higher? Perhaps scraping the very edge of the stratosphere, becoming true titans of the atmosphere. Or will the immense forces of erosion, ever patient, ever powerful, eventually wear them down, softening their jagged edges into rolling hills, much like other ancient mountain ranges have become? You might picture new river systems carving even deeper gorges, or perhaps entirely new peaks erupting from unforeseen fault lines. The air retains that crisp, thin quality, a reminder of the altitude, but now it carries a faint whisper of what might be, a boundless geological potential. One mainstream historical fact to consider is that all mountain ranges, no matter how grand, eventually succumb to the forces of erosion if tectonic uplift ceases. The Appalachians in North America, for instance, were once as tall and formidable as the Himalayas, but have been worn down over hundreds of millions of years into the gentler, rounded peaks we see today. It's a cyclical process, a geological dance of rise and fall. A quirky tidbit, perhaps a little unsettling, is the idea that the ongoing collision could, in the unimaginably distant future, lead to a completely new supercontinent, with the Himalayas at its very heart, long since eroded, but leaving their mark on the very core of a future landmass. Imagine a map of Earth 250 million years from now, a single, vast continent, where the Himalayas are just a forgotten wrinkle within its interior. Historians still argue whether the long-term patterns of mantle convection currents will maintain their current trajectory, ensuring the continued northward movement of India, or if global plate dynamics might shift, altering the destiny of these mighty mountains. Will the engine that drives them eventually slow, or even change direction? For you, the sensation is one of timelessness, a profound connection to the planet's perpetual motion. The Himalayas are a symbol not of finality, but of enduring change. Their future is still unwritten, a story waiting to unfold across eons, sculpted by the same immense forces that brought them into being. You are witnessing a continuous process, a living, breathing landscape that defies human concepts of permanence. And as the story continues, the mountains will continue their slow, patient, and magnificent transformation. You are still immersed in the majestic, growing presence of the Himalayas, feeling the vastness of their scale. But as we focus now, you begin to sense a new underlying rhythm, a pervasive, low-frequency hum that vibrates through the very ground beneath your feet. This isn't the gentle thrum of continental drift we felt earlier, but a more agitated, restless energy. This is seismic activity, the Earth's trembling breath, a direct and continuous consequence of the Indian plate relentlessly pushing into the Eurasian plate. It's like standing next to a colossal, ancient engine that's constantly running, producing subtle vibrations that hint at its immense power. Imagine the ground itself is not quite still. There's a persistent, almost subliminal tremor, a faint, deep resonance that you might mistake for your own pulse if you weren't paying close attention. This isn't an earthquake you'd feel dramatically, but rather the constant, minute adjustment of billions of tons of rock under unimaginable pressure. Think of it as the sound of a truly enormous slow-motion struggle, where the combatants are continents and their efforts result in geological friction. You might feel a faint tingling sensation in your limbs, a subtle awareness of the Earth's internal wrestling match. It's the planet sighing, groaning, and adjusting to the relentless pressure. One mainstream historical fact about seismic activity in mountain ranges is that it's a natural and inevitable part of their formation and ongoing evolution. The Himalayas are one of the most seismically active regions on Earth, precisely because the collision is still happening and the stresses are continuously building. It's not a flaw in the system, it's a feature. A quirky tidbit is that some indigenous cultures living in seismically active regions developed intricate architectural techniques, like flexible timber frames or stone buildings with interlocking joints, to naturally dissipate earthquake energy, long before modern engineering understood the principles. They lived with the trembling earth and learned to dance with it. Historians still argue whether the precise patterns of minor seismic activity, such as the distribution of micro-earthquakes, can provide more accurate long-term forecasts for major seismic events in specific segments of the Himalayan arc. Are these tiny tremors whispering secrets about bigger ones to come? For you, the sensation is a profound understanding of the Earth as a dynamic, living entity. The mountains aren't just rising, they are constantly, actively adjusting to the forces that create them. This pervasive seismic hum is the background music to the Himalayas' continued growth, a persistent reminder that the ground beneath us is far from static, always in motion, always under immense, breathtaking pressure. The very air seems to vibrate with the Earth's deep, constant effort. The constant seismic breath of the Himalayas, that low, persistent hum, leads your attention now to a more tangible manifestation of the immense pressures within the Earth. You begin to discern colossal cracks, immense fissures that score the very face of the mountains. These are the major fault lines, the Earth's scar tissue, where the crust is fractured under the unimaginable stress of continents colliding. It's like looking at a ceramic plate that's been pressed too hard, revealing a network of intricate, deep cracks that run through its entire structure. Imagine gazing upon an expanse of rock where a sheer cliff face stretches for miles, abruptly ending where another section of the mountain has shifted horizontally, or perhaps plunged dramatically downwards. You might see evidence of ancient riverbeds suddenly offset, or layers of rock that perfectly align on one side of a deep chasm, yet are miles out of sync on the other. The air itself feels colder, sharper, particularly in these vast exposed geological wounds. These fault lines aren't just lines on a map. They are zones of intense geological activity, where the Earth's crust is constantly grinding and slipping. You can almost hear the agonizing, slow screech of rock on rock, a sound that resonates through the ages. One mainstream historical fact about fault lines is their crucial role in both mountain building and earthquake generation. They are essentially the boundaries where blocks of the Earth's crust move past each other, either horizontally, strike-slip faults, vertically, normal or reverse faults, or a combination of both. The main central thrust and the main boundary thrust are two of the most significant fault systems in the Himalayas, accommodating much of the ongoing convergence. It's like the mountain range has its own internal conveyor belts, but these belts move in jerks and spasms. A quirky tidbit is the phenomenon of fault scarps, visible cliffs created by the vertical movement along a fault. These scarps can sometimes preserve evidence of multiple past earthquakes, like rings in a tree trunk, telling geologists stories of ancient seismic events. Historians still argue whether the complex interplay of these multiple major fault lines in the Himalayan arc acts to distribute the overall stress more evenly, or if certain segments are perpetually locked, building up immense stress for future larger ruptures. Are these scars helping to vent the pressure, or are they just waiting for the next big release? For you, the sensation is one of vast interconnected power. These fault lines are not just static features. They are active zones of movement, constantly accumulating and releasing stress. They are the geological seams where the Earth's crust is being stretched, compressed, and torn apart, a visible manifestation of the tireless, ongoing collision that continues to sculpt the roof of the world. Each fault line is a reminder that the Himalayas are still very much a work in progress. You felt the deep, constant tremor of seismic activity and observed the immense ancient scars of the fault lines. But now, after periods of this subtle, pervasive tension, you experience something far more dramatic. A sudden, violent release of that pent-up energy. This is an earthquake, a powerful, instantaneous jolt that sends tremors through the very bedrock, a direct consequence of the ongoing, relentless continental collision. It's like a giant spring, compressed for millions of years, suddenly snapping back with unimaginable force. Imagine the ground beneath you not just shaking, but lurching, rippling, and sometimes even temporarily seeming to liquefy in places. The air is filled with a low guttural rumble that quickly escalates into a roaring crescendo, as if the earth itself is letting out a primal scream. You might see dust plumes rising from distant slopes as rocks tumble, or hear the splintering crack of stressed rock. It's a moment of raw, untamed power, a stark reminder that the slow geological processes we've been observing can unleash terrifying bursts of energy in an instant. This isn't the gentle sway of a ship. It's the visceral, gut-wrenching lurch of the entire planet adjusting itself. One mainstream historical fact about Himalayan earthquakes is their devastating potential. The region has experienced some of the largest and most destructive earthquakes in recorded history, including the 1,934 Bihar, Nepal earthquake and the 2015 Nepal earthquake, which caused widespread destruction and loss of life. These events are a tragic but unavoidable consequence of the immense tectonic forces at play. A quirky tidbit related to this is the phenomenon of silent earthquakes, or slow slip events, where fault lines move gradually over days or weeks instead of suddenly, releasing stress without causing noticeable shaking on the surface. It's like the Earth is occasionally able to stretch out a painful cramp without making a sound. Historians still argue whether the frequency and magnitude of major earthquakes in the Himalayas are increasing due to the ongoing buildup of stress, or if the historical record is simply too short to establish a definitive trend. Are we entering a more seismically active period, or is this just business as usual for a colliding continent? For you, the sensation is one of profound respect for the planet's power. These sudden, violent releases are not random. They are the inevitable outcome of millions of years of accumulated stress along the Earth's most active fault lines. They are the punctuation marks in the long, drawn-out sentence of mountain building. Powerful reminders that the Himalayas are not just growing slowly, but also periodically and dramatically flexing their immense geological muscles. The ground shudders, then settles, leaving behind a profound stillness in the aftermath. The ground beneath you is still, but the memory of the tremor lingers, a powerful reminder of the Earth's immense energy. Now, as you gaze upon the rugged slopes and deep valleys carved by those forces, you witness another dramatic consequence of the ongoing collision and the relentless tug of gravity. Landslides, where mountains shed their skin in sudden, catastrophic movements. It's like watching a giant, ancient creature slowly slough off huge sections of its hide, revealing raw, exposed rock beneath. Imagine standing at the base of a towering, steep slope. Suddenly, you hear a low rumble, quickly growing into a thunderous roar. A section of the mountainside, perhaps dislodged by an earthquake or saturated by heavy monsoon rains, begins to detach. Boulders the size of small houses tumble downwards, trees snap like matchsticks, and an immense wave of earth and rock surges through a valley, reshaping the landscape in minutes. It's a terrifying spectacle of raw geological power, a rapid-fire sculpting event where entire portions of the mountains are rearranged with brutal efficiency. The air fills with dust, the smell of pulverized rock, and the overwhelming sound of destruction. One mainstream historical fact about landslides in the Himalayas is their significant impact on both human settlements and natural ecosystems. Major landslides can block rivers, creating temporary lakes that can then burst, causing devastating downstream floods. They are a constant threat to communities built along mountain slopes and valleys. It's a very real, very dangerous side effect of living on a still-growing mountain range. A quirky tidbit related to this is the scientific study of rock glaciers, which are slow-moving mixtures of rock and ice that behave somewhat like conventional glaciers but carry much more debris. They are, in a sense, very, very slow-motion landslides. Historians still argue whether the increased frequency and intensity of extreme weather events, potentially linked to global climate change, are exacerbating the risk of large-scale landslides in the Himalayas beyond the natural geological processes. Is humanity's impact on the atmosphere now contributing to the mountains shedding? For you, the sensation is one of profound fragility amidst immense strength. The mountains, so solid and eternal, are constantly in motion, not just in their slow uplift, but also in these sudden, dramatic collapses. Landslides are the inevitable consequence of steep slopes, unstable rock, and the ever-present pull of gravity, a powerful reminder that even the grandest structures of the Earth are subject to violent, immediate change. The mountains are both creators and destroyers of their own form, perpetually reshaping themselves. The dramatic scars of landslides and the subtle tremblers of the Earth's ongoing activity are undeniable. But as you look around, you see a more pervasive, ceaseless force at work, a testament to the power of a seemingly gentle element: river carving. You witness how powerful rivers tirelessly erode and sculpt deep, V-shaped valleys through solid rock, slicing through the very fabric of the rising mountains. It's like watching an infinitely patient diamond-tipped saw, slowly but surely cutting through the toughest material, grain by grain, year by year. Imagine standing at the edge of a precipitous gorge. Far below, a turbulent river, swollen with glacial meltwater and monsoon rains, rushes with incredible force. You can hear its constant roar, a deep, persistent hum that speaks of unyielding power. Over countless millennia, this river has systematically worn away rock, layer by layer, carrying away immense volumes of sediment towards the vast plains below. You might see evidence of ancient river terraces, remnants of older riverbeds that were subsequently uplifted, leaving the river to cut even deeper into the rising land. The very air around the gorge feels dynamic, filled with the spray of water and the invisible dust of pulverized rock. One mainstream historical fact about Himalayan rivers is that they are some of the largest and most powerful in the world, including the Indus, Ganges, and Brahmaputra, all originating in or near the range. These rivers are not just geographical features. They are lifelines for billions of people in South Asia, carrying vital water and fertile sediment. It's hard to overstate their importance. They are literally the blood vessels of a continent. A quirky tidbit is the concept of river piracy, where one river's headwaters are captured by another, often due to erosion along a weaker geological zone. Imagine one river effectively stealing water from another, slowly diverting its flow over geological time. Historians still argue whether the changing rates of uplift in different parts of the Himalayas have influenced the precise paths and erosional power of specific river systems, leading to localized shifts in their ability to carve through rock. Do faster rising sections force rivers to become more aggressive, or do they simply adapt? For you, the sensation is one of dynamic equilibrium. The mountains are rising, but the rivers are relentlessly cutting them down, maintaining a delicate, powerful balance. These deep, winding gorges are not just canyons. They are living testaments to the continuous battle between the constructive forces of tectonics and the destructive, yet equally creative, power of water. The rivers are the mountains' oldest rivals, constantly reshaping them with every drop. Section 21. The deep gorges carved by rivers speak volumes about water's power. But as you gaze upwards from these valleys, you notice another colossal sculptor at work, one that operates with immense, crushing slowness, glacial action. You feel the cold, heavy presence of vast ice masses, grinding away at the highest peaks, shaping wide, U-shaped valleys, and carrying immense quantities of rock and sediment. It's like watching a monumental frozen bulldozer, pushing and scraping the landscape with an unstoppable, ponderous might. Imagine standing at the head of a valley that, unlike the sharp V-shape of a river gorge, is broad and rounded, its sides smoothed as if by an enormous scoop. The air is frigid, carrying the crisp scent of ice and ancient rock. You might hear the faint groans and creaks of the glacier itself, a sound like a distant, living entity. Below your feet, invisible to the eye, the ice is slowly dragging embedded rocks across the bedrock, leaving behind deep striations and polished surfaces. When the glacier eventually retreats, it leaves behind a distinctive landscape of hanging valleys, cirques, bowl-shaped depressions, and moraines, ridges of deposited debris. It's a testament to ice's ability to fundamentally transform the very contours of a mountain range. One mainstream historical fact about glaciers in the Himalayas is their role as vast freshwater reservoirs, feeding many of the major rivers that sustain billions of people downstream. Their meltwater is crucial, especially during dry seasons. It's a delicate balance where the icy giants at the top of the world provide life to the lowlands. A quirky tidbit related to glacial action is the phenomenon of glacial flour, incredibly fine rock particles created by the grinding action of glaciers. This flour often turns meltwater rivers a distinctive turquoise or milky white color, as if the mountains are bleeding their own dust. It's a beautiful, eerie sight. Historians still argue whether the historical fluctuations in glacial extent, driven by past climate changes, directly impacted the rate of mountain erosion in specific periods, potentially accelerating the overall denudation of the Himalayan range. Did periods of intense glaciation make the mountains shrink faster? For you, the sensation is one of immense, patient power. Glaciers, though seemingly static, are dynamic forces of nature, constantly reshaping the highest reaches of the Himalayas. They are both destructive tearing away rock, and creative, sculpting the iconic U-shaped valleys and depositing fertile soils. The mountains are not only being built from below, but also meticulously carved and refined by the icy hands of the elements. A truly magnificent, slow-motion art project. The colossal work of rivers and glaciers, carving and sculpting the mountains, inevitably leads to another subtle yet profound geological response. You feel a gentle, almost imperceptible lift from deep within the earth, a buoyant push upwards. This is isostatic adjustment, the Earth's slow, tireless effort to maintain balance. It's like watching a massive submerged iceberg that rises slightly higher out of the water as its top slowly melts away. As the immense weight of rock and ice is removed from the Himalayan peaks by erosion and glacial melt, the underlying crust, which is somewhat buoyant, begins to slowly rebound upwards. Imagine the Earth's crust as a thick, flexible raft floating on a denser, semi-molten layer called the mantle. When you place a heavy load on the raft, it sinks. When you remove that load, it slowly rises again. This is precisely what's happening in the Himalayas, but on a geological timescale. You might feel a faint, almost spiritual connection to this deep-seated mechanism, a fundamental principle of planetary physics playing out beneath your feet. The mountains aren't just being built from below by collision. They're also being pushed up by this subtle upward buoyancy as their tops are weathered away. It's a perpetual geological seesaw, with erosion on one side and uplift on the other. One mainstream historical fact about isostatic adjustment is its role in shaping landscapes far beyond active mountain ranges. For instance, after the massive ice sheets of the last ice age melted, large areas of Scandinavia and North America are still experiencing slow, ongoing uplift as the crust rebounds from the vanished weight of the ice. It's a slow-motion geological stretch reflex. A quirky tidbit is how this ongoing uplift can sometimes trap ancient shorelines or lake beds at higher elevations, creating raised beaches or terraces that provide clear evidence of past land movements. It's like finding a high water mark from a tide that happened millions of years ago. Historians still argue whether the precise flexural rigidity of the continental crust, or its ability to bend without breaking, influences the spatial extent and magnitude of isostatic rebound in different parts of the Himalayan foreland. Does a more rigid crust lead to a wider zone of uplift, or does it focus the rebound more locally? For you, the sensation is one of dynamic harmony. The forces of erosion and the forces of uplift are constantly engaged in a silent, powerful dance. As the mountains are worn down by wind, water, and ice, the earth beneath them responds by gently pushing them back up, striving for a continuous, albeit slow, state of equilibrium. The Himalayas are not merely passively enduring the elements. They are actively responding, perpetually seeking their geological balance. The mountains are still rising, subtly adjusting, but beneath their majestic peaks, a more profound, almost alchemical transformation is occurring. You feel an intense, pervasive heat radiating from deep within the earth, accompanied by an almost palpable pressure. This is metamorphism, where rocks are fundamentally transformed by immense heat and pressure, often without melting, a direct consequence of the immense forces of continental collision. It's like watching a geological slow cooker where the ingredients are immense slabs of rock and the cooking process takes millions of years. Imagine the ancient sediments of the Tethys Ocean, once soft mud and sand, now buried miles deep beneath the growing mountain range. The immense weight of the overlying rock, combined with the heat generated by the collision and the Earth's own geothermal gradient, begins to cook these rocks. Limestone transforms into marble, shale into slate and then schist, and granite can become gneiss, each rock type gaining a new crystalline structure and often a distinct banded appearance. You might feel a profound sense of the rocks themselves being alive, subtly shifting and recrystallizing at a molecular level. There's a faint, almost metallic smell in the air, a whisper of the chemical reactions constantly taking place in the depths. One mainstream historical fact about metamorphism is that many of the most beautiful and economically valuable rocks on Earth, like marble and slate used in construction, are metamorphic in origin. The very forces that build mountains also create some of our most prized natural resources. It's a remarkable byproduct of planetary violence. A quirky tidbit is the concept of flash metamorphism, which can occur during very large earthquakes, where the intense friction along a fault line generates enough heat to instantly alter rocks in a narrow zone, creating unique, high-pressure minerals that serve as geological fingerprints of past seismic events. It's like a fleeting, super-fast cooking burst in the Earth's slow cooker. Historians still argue whether the specific pressure-temperature paths experienced by rocks during Himalayan metamorphism can provide unique insights into the exact history of the collision, including the depth and angle of subduction at various stages. Can the rocks truly tell us the entire story of their journey? For you, the sensation is one of profound internal power. These mountains aren't just shaped on their surface. They are being fundamentally remade from the inside out. Metamorphism is the unseen engine of transformation, constantly converting old rocks into new ones, a silent, continuous reshaping of the very material that makes up the Himalayas. The heart of the mountains is perpetually being reforged. The deep, transformative forces of metamorphism are a testament to the immense pressures at the heart of the collision. Now, as you continue your slow, silent journey through the evolving Himalayas, you sense another powerful manifestation of the Earth's internal energy: geothermal activity. You feel a surprising warmth rising from unexpected places, the steam of hot springs, and perhaps even the faint gurgle of unseen geysers, all evidence of the deep-seated geological processes still at work. It's like discovering the Earth has its own hidden network of plumbing, constantly circulating heated water through its rocky interior. Imagine stepping near a natural spring, but instead of cold water, a plume of steam rises from the ground, carrying the distinct, slightly sulfuric scent of the Earth's breath. The water itself might be surprisingly hot to the touch, warmed by molten rock or by circulating through deeply fractured crust near fault lines. You might see mineral deposits forming colorful terraces around these springs, testament to the dissolved minerals brought up from the depths. This activity is not just about heat, it's about water interacting with hot rocks, dissolving and transporting elements, shaping landscapes even from beneath the surface. It's a bit like the Earth brewing its own very slow, very hot, and mineral-rich tea. One mainstream historical fact about geothermal activity in mountain ranges is its connection to volcanic chains, even if the volcanoes themselves are now dormant. The heat source often originates from the same magmatic processes that once built fiery peaks, now manifesting as quieter, steam-driven vents. Many ancient cultures settled near hot springs, recognizing their therapeutic properties and sometimes attributing sacred significance to these warm, healing waters. It's a remarkable natural resource, born from geological power. A quirky tidbit related to this is the unique ecosystems that thrive around deep-sea hydrothermal vents, completely independent of sunlight, powered instead by the chemical energy released from superheated, mineral-rich water. While the Himalayas don't have deep-sea vents, the principle of life sustained by geothermal energy is fascinatingly similar. Historians still argue whether shifts in geothermal activity in certain Himalayan valleys might have influenced early human migration routes or settlement patterns, as these warm spots could have offered refuges during colder periods or provided unique resources. Did early humans follow the warmth? For you, The sensation is one of constant renewal and hidden energy. Even as the mountains rise and erode on the surface, the Earth's internal furnace continues to churn, driving unseen circulation of heat and water. Geothermal activity is a potent reminder that the Himalayas are not just a static mass of rock. They are a dynamic, living system, constantly radiating warmth and transforming their own essence from within. The Earth's internal heat is an enduring, palpable force, forever shaping the landscape. You've felt the deep internal heat, witnessed the Earth's dramatic tremors, and understood the patient, persistent forces that sculpt the Himalayan peaks. Now, as our immense journey through time and geology nears its end, you are left with a profound sense of the continued evolution of these mountains, contemplating the intricate dance of creation and destruction that will shape their distant future. It's not a story with an ending, but a dynamic, unfolding process that stretches into an unimaginably distant tomorrow. Imagine gazing upon the vast, majestic range millions of years from now. Will the Indian Plate's relentless northward drive continue, pushing the peaks even higher, perhaps to altitudes that dwarf even Mount Everest's current height? Or will the relentless forces of erosion, empowered by intensified weather patterns or shifting climates, eventually win the long game, reducing the Himalayas to a range of gentler, rounded hills, much like other ancient mountain chains across the globe? You might visualize new river systems carving unforeseen paths, or vast new glacial systems forming in response to future ice ages. The very air around you seems to hum with this endless potential, a silent promise of geological change. One mainstream historical fact about the long-term future of plate tectonics is the concept of supercontinent cycles. Earth's continents are not static. They periodically assemble into colossal landmasses and then rift apart, a cycle that takes hundreds of millions of years. The Himalayas are a product of one such assembly phase, and in the unimaginably distant future, they might be part of a new supercontinent, their ancient rocks forming the core of future landmasses. It's a truly mind-boggling scale of planetary evolution. A quirky tidbit related to this is the idea that the scar of the Himalayan collision might become a future rift zone, tearing apart a new supercontinent millions of years from now, effectively recycling its own birthplace. It's like the Earth remembering its own past, only to unravel it. Historians still argue whether changes in the Earth's mantle convection currents, deep beneath the surface, could significantly alter the trajectories of continental plates in the far future, potentially leading to new collision zones, or even changing the very nature of the Himalayas' ongoing growth. Will the deep engine of the Earth shift its gears? For you, the sensation is one of timelessness, of being part of a geological epoch that far transcends human existence. The Himalayas are a living, breathing testament to the planet's ceaseless activity, a masterpiece sculpted by forces we can only begin to comprehend. Their story is perpetually unfolding, a magnificent, slow-motion drama written in rock, ice, and sky, stretching infinitely into the future. Word count 1059. The light fades, and the vast, icy expanse of the Himalayas softens into a dreamlike haze. The relentless grind of continents, the fiery whisper of magma, the patient hand of erosion all recede into the profound quiet of geological time. You feel the immense pressures ease, the ground beneath you becoming still and calm once more. The air, crisp and clear moments ago, now wraps around you like a gentle, reassuring blanket, cool on your skin. The monumental forces that sculpted these peaks are still at work, of course, but their symphony has faded to a barely audible lullaby. Drifting now, you sense the world settling into its natural rhythm, a rhythm far slower and more patient than any human heartbeat. The memory, of the ancient Tethys Ocean, the long voyage of India, the slow, magnificent buckling of the Earth's crustal blend into a single, cohesive narrative of creation. The mountains stand as silent sentinels, their story continuing, but for tonight your part in it draws to a close. Let the lingering images of immense power and unimaginable time gently guide you, a calming presence in your mind. The Earth breathes ever so slowly, and so do you. All is quiet, all is peaceful.